everything is discussed, that's what we want to come across. That there are topics that perhaps you and I didn't know the Quran talks about, in an attempt to bridge the gap between us and the Quran. If you remember the very first discussion we had last Monday, we talked a little bit about these obstacles in the path between us and the Quran. Why is there such a distance or a gap between us? And part of that is because we don't see the Quran as a constitution for our life. And so we've discussed everything from the qadr of Allah to the love of Allah, to everything from 2 nights ago now. We talked about the verses from the Battle of Uhud in Surah Ali Imran. We talked about lessons from that story. And today I want to talk a little bit about a very important topic that, of course, affects our youth and our young generation, but also affects the families out there as well. Stephen Covey is an author that I'm sure all of you have heard about. He's the author of the very famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, he talks about 2 circles that the human being has in their life. One is called the circle of control or the circle of influence, and the other is called the circle of concern. The circle of concern versus the circle of influence. He says individuals are either reactive in life or they're proactive in life. And he says that the reactive ones, their circle of concern is bigger than their circle of influence. And the proactive ones, their circle of influence is bigger than that of the circle of concern. Now, what is a circle of concern? It's those things in our life that we don't have control over, but that concerns us. Then we have the circle of influence, which are those things inside that circle that influence our behavior, influence the way that we think and talk, where we eat, where we work, where we go, how we believe in Allah, how we worship Allah. All those things reside within the circle of influence. Individuals who are reactive by nature and ultimately unsuccessful in this life are people whose entire focus is over the concern, not over the influence. Then there are those who are successful. And these are people who are consumed about the influence, not so much about the concern. Examples of things that reside in the circle of our concern are things like the economy, things like the weather, things like what other people think about me. There are many of us who are obsessed by that. We change the way we talk, we change the way we dress, we change where we go. If we find out 1 or 2 or 5 people don't like my lifestyle, and so all I do is I live my life trying to please a person beside me. These are people who are reactive by nature. Or there are people who are concerned about, let's say, the state of the economy in California, right? And so they'll obsess over it, read articles about it, change jobs over it, even change physical locations. If certain areas in California have a higher amount of return than others do. These again are people who are reactive. But the proactive ones are those who, yes, there's concern, no doubt, about the economy. There's concern, no doubt, about what others might think about me. But that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is to build my circle of influence, to surround myself around people who will now bring me towards a better life. Where now things like where I live and where I work and where I spend my time and how I worship Allah and the values that I give to my children and how I, as a collective family unit, go towards Allah. These are things that I am consumed about. And I'm proactive in my nature to make sure that those people in that circle are strong, good-willed, God-conscious people. And the Quran talks about this very openly. It is amazing how we underestimate those people in our life that we refer to as influential people, and how many of our youth don't understand how it is critical at that very sensitive age in their life to choose the right people around them. A lot of my parents in the audience, a lot of you have young children at home. And I know I've spoken to enough of you to know that you're concerned Sometimes it's not so much about their iman or about their piety or about their taqwa. The concern is who they spend their Friday nights with. Who influences them in their decisions. Everything from how long do I grow my hair to how tight my jeans are to whether or not I should smoke or not. All these things are based on those around us. And Islam has written pages upon pages of our hadiths and traditions that talk about the importance of choosing the right circle of influence. And that's not just our kids and our youth. A lot of you have family friends where you take your family, you go over to their house, and they of course come over to your house. And that equally should be a point of scrutiny for all of us, to not just allow anybody to come into our homes. When, let's say, for example, you have, mashallah, a very God-fearing, God-conscious, muttaqi, muhajjaba wife who's concerned about her hijab, and you spend your time with those families where the wife, mashallah, doesn't care about her hijab. She's very much into fashion, right? And she spends 3 hours getting ready to come to your house. And that might influence your wife in a negative way. So this is a concern for us all throughout our life, not just in our young years. But because our youth are very impressionable, it becomes a moment of focus for them at that young age. Now let's examine this very first verse on the screen here in front of you from Surah Ankabut. Surah Ankabut is a Makki surah. Meaning what? The majority of the surah was revealed in Mecca. Mecca, you should know and you do know, alhamdulillah, was a very difficult time in the Holy Prophet's prophethood. The enmity towards him from Abu Sufyan, from his uncle Abu Lahab and the like was very strong. They did their best to lure the Prophet of Allah from his path. They tried to give him money, fame, fortune, women, government, land, anything, just to stop preaching Tawheed. They would go to Abu Talib and say, go and tell your nephew to stop preaching this idea of one Allah, one Allah, one Allah. He's killing our business of idol worshipping, and he's destroying and disrespecting our idols. But nothing, of course, would lure the Prophet of Allah off of the path. Then there came moments where they would, resort to name calling him a magician, a sahir, a majnoon, a lunatic, na'udhu billah. They would throw feces at the man, throw garbage at the man. They would put tacks, sharp tacks where he would pray, and he would get scarred and zakhmi, and blood would come from his hands from doing sujood. Then they would banish him, of course, to three years of Shib Abu Talib, a valley outside of Mecca, where there is very scarce water and scarce resources. Sanctions, both economic sanctions and social sanctions, telling the people of Mecca, don't marry your daughters to those who believe in Muhammad's message. All these things happened in the 13 years inside Mecca. Surah Ankabut was revealed, parts of it was revealed, this verse was revealed near the end of the 13 years of Mecca. So I want you to imagine now for a moment that those individuals who said labbaik to the Prophet's call, who began to, of course, accept Islam and come towards Islam, there are many, many young individuals, and you should know that the two groups that went, with a lot of speed towards the Holy Prophet were either the young or the poor. These two individuals, the old and rich, were set in their ways, unfortunately. And a lot of times these young individuals will go against their parents' wishes, will go against their family wishes. They would be disowned by their family, disowned by their community, disowned by their loved ones, but they realized that this was the path of haqq and truthfulness. So now, these last few years in Mecca, where things become really tense, tafsir of this ayat says that a lot of the youth would come to the Holy Prophet and tell him, Ya Rasulullah, there are people in Mecca that I grew up with. I've spent my childhood with these individuals. They don't have tawfiq to accept Islam. In fact, they ridicule this very deen. I believe in you and your mission, no doubt. But I'm worried about losing them as my friends. I'm worried about them removing me from their circles. All I know, all I've ever known is this circle in front of me. I know that their lifestyle goes against Islam. I know they are amongst the mushrikeen. But ultimately they are my brothers, right? They're my childhood friends. I grew up with these people in the streets of Mecca. And now it feels like the deen is asking me to make a very difficult choice. Either I follow your path and I leave them, or I hang on to that friendship and I leave the path of Islam. Many of my youth today are in the exact same situation. A lot of you guys out there, young individuals, you guys know that the people I hang out with aren't good news. They bring out the worst in me. They bring out the shaitan in me. When I'm not with them, I actually fear Allah. I think of Allah. I do dhikr of Allah. I've seen youth with my own eyes, I'm sure all of you have, that when they are by themselves alone inside the masjid, inside someone's home, they mashallah are one of the best behaved. Well akhlaq, everything is very good. But for some reason when they're around a certain group, they become these individuals that you don't want to be around. And inside the heart of their hearts, they know these guys are bad news, but I can't break off from them. My fear is isolation. My fear is to be ostracized. My fear is to be insulted. So I'll swallow my values, right? I'll quiet the conscience inside of me just to be accepted by this group. The people of Mecca were no different. That's exactly, they came to the Holy Prophet with the exact same issue. What do I do about this? And this is when this verse was revealed. And it's a very beautiful promise by Allah. That what? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لِنُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ فِي الصَّالِحِينَ. The Quran then comes back to the Prophet, says, tell them that if they have iman and they do good, we are the ones that will take care of the circle of their influence. We'll place them amongst the salihin. We'll find them friends who are just like them. We'll find them companions just like them. We will shape and form and groom their circle of influence. They don't have to worry about making this difficult choice, nor do they have to worry about losing their friends. We will make it such that people like them, youth like them, individuals who are God-fearing like them, pious like them, respectful like them, will make it such that their hearts are softened for each other. It will make them friends, literally. Those of you who are a little bit older and have spent some time here in California or in the west of any city, you can probably tell me that you've been through your various circle of friends. If you examine those friendships you had in high school, let's say, to the ones you have right now, if I examine my own life and think about those guys in high school I used to hang out with, that I thought were my family, man, live and die, right? For life, that's it. These guys are my brothers, my familia, that's it. We give everything for them. And now I look back to them, I don't know if they're alive or dead, in jail, father of 6, I have no idea. I don't know. And I'm not saying that I've moved on to something bigger and better, but I'm saying that, I look back to that time when I was 16, 17, I thought these guys, you grow old with, we have kids together, our kids will marry their kids, all these things, but that of course doesn't happen. And you go through a series of circles, when eventually you get to a circle where Allah says, لِنُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ فِي الصَّالِحِينَ. We'll find you the pious ones. We'll find you the good ones. Don't sell your principles out for a few people that don't care about me at all. If Allah has given you tawfiq, if Allah has given you a good set of parents, they are concerned about your akhirat. They brought you to the masjid. They've given you good values. They placed the fear of God inside of you. They placed the love of Ali Muhammad inside of you. Don't throw that all away for a matter of a couple of guys who want nothing but to get high on Friday nights. All because you're worried about the fact that maybe I might be ostracized. God now promises, I'll find you the friends. I've had so many stories of people telling me that, I took my family and I moved away from a very bad area of the city. Okay? And we moved to an area where there weren't any Muslims at all. A nice quiet area, good white people there, mashallah. Very nice neighbors. They'll cut your grass for you, and in Toronto they'll shovel your driveway for you, but you have no idea what that means in California. And then all of a sudden, my friends would feel like, Dad, you took us away from my friends. I feel alone. I'm completely, depressed, blah, blah, blah. And then I find out about some Shia family who now lives 5 houses down from me. It's a great family, a God-fearing family, a pious family. And now, alhamdulillah, thanks to that, 3 years later, we are such close friends that now my kids are best friends with their kids. And now because of it, they're pious, God-fearing children of mine. I mean, it was so random, they would say, that of all the streets to find a home on, they came and they landed on our street 5 houses down. That's not by chance sometimes. That's Allah saying, لِنُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ فِي الصَّالِحِينَ. We'll place you amongst the right circles. Just don't give up your values. Don't sell your soul out for the approval of a couple of people out there who have no value of life whatsoever. And that's why, a lot of you parents who are obsessed with knowing who the friends of your children are, I salute you. I have respect for you. You should be concerned about. Not to the point where you interview them, call them over, interrogate them, flash a flashlight in their eyes. No, not like that. But at least have some idea that where are your kids going on Friday night, and who are they going with, more importantly. And that's why it's important that if you bring them to the center and make them involved in the community outside these big nights, then Allah, helps out with this idea of placing them inside these circles. Because we'll review 2 ayats in a moment that talks about the fact that it's very dangerous. The Quran describes very dangerous when you continue to allow those people that are bad news influence you to the point where now your soul begins to what? Begins to stain itself with the stain of kufr and disbelief. So tonight's discussion is about building our circle of influence. And Allah says, I'll help you in that cause based on what? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمَلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. The condition, the criteria, of course, is in your hands. If you hold on to your iman, you're not concerned about the idea of peer pressure, not concerned about him bashing you on social media, not concerned about him ripping you apart in public gatherings. If you can kind of, go get through that and be a little bit forbearing through that, then Allah will take care of the rest. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now I wanted, if you can go to the next verse, Mustafa, please. To continue this, we go to Surah Furqan. You have both of them? You have the first one up. Okay. That's okay. Look now the influence. Look at the influence that the individual that you believe to be your friend, that you knew was bad news, had on you. Surah Furqan, this verse, and many of the verses before that, talk about those individuals who ultimately will be unsuccessful in the hereafter, okay? And they're moving towards the hellfire. They've made this dunya their Jannah, and now they're dealing with the Akhirat the way that Allah said that they have to deal with it. Amongst those people who are going towards the hellfire are individuals who did not take the necessary steps to remove those individuals who were cancerous for their iman from their life. So from childhood all the way until their very last days, they had a few of these friends who were bad news from day number 1, and they're bad news still today on day number 0. To the point where the Quran describes those people. This is the dangerous part now. Where now they'll complain as they enter their hellfire. They'll look back to their life in this dunya, and they'll think about all those things that they could have avoided. All those excuses as to why they are in the predicament they are in right now, on the verge of the hellfire. And of all the things they could complain about, being in the West, living, corporate America, for example, social media, shayateen, Islamophobia, 1,000 excuses not to be pious. The one the Quran talks about, the only one that they're going to scream about, is the idea that woe unto me, lam attakhiz fulanan khalila. If only I didn't take so-and-so to be my friend. If only I didn't do that. If only I didn't take Fulan, and whoever Fulan is in your life, to be my Khalil, to be my friend, I wouldn't be on the verge of entering the hellfire today. That's the effect that a friend or the circle of influence has on someone like you and I. It becomes very serious now. It's not just the idea of values in this dunya. We're talking about building your home in the akhirat as well. And we are social beings, right? We're beings that belong to an ijtima'i system. We're not individuals who are going to close up the house and lock ourselves in a room or in the basement and not face the world. No, we're social beings. And then the very next verse talks about this idea that what did this friend do? Again, it's on the screen there. He said he was an individual that when haqq came to me, when truth came to me, when I was told what was right and what was wrong, he continuously misguided me. He pulled me off the path. When it was very clear to me, it was very clear to me what was right, what was wrong. I was going so smoothly. He came and he made it sound like this is not right, this is what's right. And I followed him. And now Shaitan has deserted me completely. Shaitan is long gone, his awliya are long gone, and here I lie in my qabr, in my grave, on the verge of entering the hellfire. All because of what? That Khalil, that friend that I didn't have the courage to walk away from. Because I didn't believe that I could make any other friends. This is a group that I've known all my life, and I'm not here trying to ruin friendships tonight, by the way. I really am not. I'm not here, I'm just simply here trying for all of us to understand that part of the deen building process are the people around you. It has to be. If you have a friend of yours who's saying, look, I'm going to Saba, there's an excellent speaker here from Toronto. I have a purple tablecloth today. That's how good I am, mashallah. And he constantly telling you, come, I'll pick you up, I'll drop you off. Bro, just reach. We'll chill after, we'll go for a coffee. Just come and, have iftar. That's the kind of people you want around you. And some of you, mashallah, I know you guys very well, you have that system, alhamdulillah. You have good, solid individuals. When it comes time to play, they play hard. When it comes time to worship, they worship hard. Right? When it comes time for you to sit down and watch the Warriors sweep the Cavs, I'm right there beside you. When it comes time for you to watch the 49ers stink it up every week, they're right there beside you. When it comes time for Shab Qadr, they're also right there beside you. They're saying Bika Ya Allah, you're saying Bika Ya Allah. That's the people that you need around you. But you have to first identify the ones around me are no good, I'm sorry. And I'm not saying to go out of your element or be bad akhlaq and say, look, from this day forward, you're dead to me. No, not like that. Right? We're gonna slowly but surely kind of ease our way. And maybe, inshallah, if you can change yourself, you can bring your whole circle towards you. But let's not be so naive to think, you know what, I'm in this circle so I could save the day. No. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. You're one, they're five. They'll always win that battle. We're not that strong to take on 5 of the awliya of shaitan. So better to walk away and let Allah take care of the rest. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَنُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ فِي الصَّالِحِينَ. Otherwise, we end up a person like that, complaining on the day of judgment, that look, it wasn't my fault, wallahi, Allah, it was that friend of mine that took me off the path of your belief. So it is a moment of reflection to really go deep down inside and ask yourself, am I a better person with these people, or do they bring out the shaitan inside of me? Now, if you've identified that I need to make a change, there are ways to make a change that are within the confines of Islamic morality and ethics. Like I said, I'm not encouraging the idea of an ugly divorce or an ugly breakup with your friends, no. I am saying for you to contemplate. I'm asking my parents in the audience to please be involved in your child's life when it comes to their friendships and find out exactly what's going on. We'll examine a couple of verses to bring the point home. Sorry, a couple of hadiths to bring the point home. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. The Holy Prophet, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala. He has very powerful traditions when he talks about the idea of the circle of influence. He says, remember, that circle you belong to could be 5 of you, 6 of you, 3 of you, 10 of you. He says the power is such that there might be multiple bodies in that circle, but there's ultimately one soul. All of you prescribe to one soul, meaning what? That really you are one entity amongst 10 different bodies. It's naive to think that I am different and the circle I belong to are different. No, literally you can pick up who hangs out, who doesn't hang out by the way that they dress and how they talk and the lingo they use and the words they use. Well, we had, I remember I saw circles of influence develop in front of me where now, there's one kid who was a friend with a guy who had a trench coat and long hair, and within a week now his hair started getting a little bit longer and longer and longer. Now they all have ponytails, they all have trench coats. And they walk in like the mafia inside the center. You guys are one soul amongst multiple bodies, the Prophet says. Another tradition, he says, where you will eventually accept and adopt the deen of your friends. Now, deen doesn't mean that if you have Yahudi friends, you convert. It means that you adopt the way of life of your friends. Their decisions. What's important to them becomes important to you. Where they eat is where you eat. What they watch is what you watch. All these things, of course, are in a hadith. There's one hadith I want to share with you and expand on. It's a very beautiful one. It's by Imam Jafri Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. And he talks about the idea of who is it that should be part of the circle of your influence. And he mentions 5 qualities of those people that we should avoid altogether to not allow them to trickle into our circle. People that we should not befriend. And it's amazing how he breaks it down and what was important to the Ahlul Bayt to ensure that there is a proper form of qualities inside of your friend. Before that, one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. He says the first person you should avoid, he says, beware of and do not associate yourself with the one who tells lies. And then he explains very beautifully. He says that individual is a mirage in your life. He makes near for you what is far and far for you what is near. We have individuals in our life sometimes that you want to do good, right? You call them and say, look, you know what, bro, I'm going to go Saba tonight. Okay? And because he doesn't have the tawfiq to come to Saba, or perhaps he's not inspired yet, inshallah he will be one day, Saba was very close to you. You had everything planned out. I'll go to Saba, I'll hear the speech, I'll eat, I'll come home. That was what's close to you. And one conversation with him, he says, look, just forget Saba. Let's go out and get some good food tonight. The spicy food is too spicy at Saba. The non-spicy is not spicy enough. Long lines. There's never any seconds. All these things you have, right? 1,000 complaints. Not me, I'm talking about that guy talking to them. And so what was very near to you, he made very far. Or God forbid, he's telling you to come with him Friday night to a place that you never thought you would ever end up. It was very far for you. But after influence, I'll pick you up, I'll drop you off. Don't worry about the ride. And what was very far for you, he makes very near for you. Right? This is a person that the Imam says you should avoid. Number 2. Beware of, he says, and do not associate yourself with an immoral person who has no taqwa. Why? Again, he explains. This person will sell you out for a bite of food, he says. A morsel of food will sell you out. Now, of course, a morsel of food is an example here. The idea is that at the very little, most minimal amount of cost in this dunya, he'll sell out your friendship. Why? Because he has no morals, there's no values, no virtues, and all those come from the home. Right? There's no piety, there's no taqwa, there's no akhlaq. And the moment that you need him, he'll have 1,000 excuses for everything else, but he won't come in, support you, beside you. Number 3, beware of and do not associate with a miser. A miser, someone who's bakhil. Tandas, as they say in Farsi. Kanjus, as they say in Urdu. Right? Someone who is a miser individual. Why? Again, he explains that when you need his wealth, he won't offer it to you. You're stuck somewhere. Let's say you have some medical bills. Let's say, God forbid, your child is sick. Or God forbid, your mother is sick. You're not doing too well. You need a little bit of an influx of cash right away. And you know this friend of yours, mashallah, is well off. It should be to the point where you should have no problems in asking him for that money. But if you know that he is a miser, a bakhil individual, then he won't give you a single penny. You know, I found a very interesting hadith, talks about life after the Imam arrives. The Imam comes, his inqilab happens, and now he begins to set society. He says society will be at such a point, can you imagine this for a moment, that friends will be so close to each other that one friend would be able to place his hand inside the pocket of another friend and take out whatever he needs, and that friend wouldn't mind at all. That's the state of the closeness and the qurbat and the love that the Imam will bring to society. If your wife goes into your pocket today, you're like, hey, what are you doing? Ask me, I'll give you. Don't go into my pocket. The Imam's saying something else. He says, he goes, avoid a miser, avoid somebody who if you need a penny, a dollar, he's not going to give it to you. What kind of friend is that? Number 4, beware of and do not associate yourself with a fool, he says. A fool. A person who makes horrible decisions. And life is nothing but a composition of horrible decisions or good decisions. You can see a person that when they're on the verge of making a decision, what do they do to make a decision? And you can see a person is foolish or he's very smart. The Imam here is saying avoid a fool. Why? Because he may think he's benefiting you, but he's actually harming you. Because he doesn't know any better. And finally, he says, and very importantly, do not associate with that individual who disrespects his parents in front of you. He says, because if he has no hesitation in disrespecting his parents, he'll disrespect you tomorrow. And respect and izzah is one of the foundational pieces of a solid and strong friendship. These are 5 qualities the Imam says, and advising his companions to not allow anyone with these 5 qualities to become part of the circle of your influence. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So my brothers and my sisters, today's discussion is all about the circle of influence. We want to be proactive individuals. And the world of sociology and human psychology dictates to us that proactive people are people who are consumed with building their circle of influence. They surround themselves with the right areas and right people because they realize that these are people who have a say in my proactivity. At a very young age that all of you are at, some of you young guys, you have to always ensure that you surround yourself with the right people. Never allow anyone to make you swallow or silence that conscious of God inside of you. Only because what? Only because they don't have that conscious inside of you. You know, there are some people out there who claim to be our friends. And when we are moving up the ladder of Allah, instead of being happy for us, they crush us and bring us down because they don't feel like they can reach that level. So in order for them to feel better, instead of them elevating themselves towards your level, they'll bring you down to their level. And Imam Ali says, a true friend is not jealous of your success. He's proud of your success, almost as if it's his own success. There's a lot to think about tonight. In these trying times where we're searching for any avenue of hidayat, sometimes the people that we spend our time with outside our families are a very direct avenue to the hidayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that's not a strong road or a strong path or a strong avenue, then we are up, against a very difficult battle. It's a lot easier that you and that circle around you are fighting the same fight together because there's strength in numbers, right? We live in a very peer-pressured system. It should be such that either you influence them towards khair or they influence you towards khair. Not that there's a battle between whether or not I influence you or you influence me. So again, I want to, repeat myself for a third time tonight that I'm not here to break up friendships that are 10 years old. I really am not. You have family, friends that you spend some time with, that's fine. But examine what kind of influence they have on you. And as you get older, you can block influence. But when you're young, it's a very difficult thing to block influence. As they say that if you stand outside the shop of a blacksmith, just stand outside of it, your hands are bound to get black. You never went inside, but you are affected by those around you. So we ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us that tawfiq to choose our circle of influence properly, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that in this month of Ramadan now, that's almost 10 days old now, we ask you, Allah, to accept our a'mal, inshallah, forgive our sins and those of our parents. We ask you, Allah, to weaken the hands of the enemies of Islam, to strengthen the mustaza'afin all over the world, inshallah. And finally, Allah, our dua is always one, that you allow us to witness the zuhur of Imam al-Zamana inside of our lifetime, inshallah, and that we be beside him during his mission. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's a request for a Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's, the sponsors of tonight's program. We did that in the beginning, but inshallah, if you can join me in reciting one more Fatiha for those who are sponsors of the marhumin of those who are sponsors, inshallah, and also your marhumin and the shuhada. Please, Fatiha.